Our next story is from Loveless Wolf 221. I used to work at a car company about 2 to 3 years ago as a telephonist on the night shift doing 12-hour shifts. It was pretty good, 4 days working, 3 days off, and the pay was decent. However, most people didn't take their job seriously. They would call in sick or just not show up for work at all, and especially on nights when there were only 4 of us. If one person didn't show up, you felt it. I was a star employee. I showed up early, logged in, and started working usually from 6:30. I never took a sick day, changed my holidays to fit the company's needs, and worked any overtime they needed me to work. I was so dedicated to my role that I had worked on multiple occasions 18 to 24 hours, as people wouldn't show up for shifts and they needed cover. It was my first real job, and I believed in the company. I used the train system to get to and from work and always planned out my routes as much as I could to avoid being late. However, on this particular day, they were running a reduced service due to breakdowns. A lot of the trains had been repaired using less than stellar parts, and the wheels kept sticking to the tracks when they hit the brakes, causing wearing on the wheels in specific spots. So a lot of trains were out of commission. On top of that, the train I was on had been stopped due to a signal issue for 15 to 20 minutes. This led to me being late. I had shown up about 10 minutes late to the start of my shift. Before I even sat down, my manager was giving me grief. Apparently, they were mad because I had stopped other telephonists going home, as someone had to work 10 extra minutes to cover my shift, as 2 people were ill and couldn't make it. Now, I hate being late. I was already pissed off that I was late, but my manager giving me trouble as soon as I walked through the door just irritated me even more. My reply to him was as follows. Apologies, I was late. However, how many times have I ever been late? I show up 30 minutes before my shift every day. I have stayed late to cover days before the train had an issue and it was out of my control. I was stuck underground with no signal to call or text to let you know. My manager didn't give a flip. Their reply to me was, "You start at 7, you finish at 7. You are in early on your own time. Those times you have stayed behind, you have been paid, and no one asked you to." Okay, then, was my reply. The next day was extremely busy. My colleague had left, and only one of the morning guys had shown up for a shift to take over. As he sat down, I began to pack up. At 7 a.m. on the dot, I left. As I usually help out when this happened, everyone was surprised and had asked me where I was going. My only reply was, I start at 7, I finish at 7. This was my final shift, and so I was off for the next few days. On my first shift back, I got pulled into the office by my manager with HR. They asked me why I left a single telephonist on their own. I looked at my manager and repeated the exact same words that were said to me. My manager informed me I start at 7, I finish at 7. The look on HR's face was priceless. She was pissed. She already had a staff issue to deal with, and on top of that, one of her most helpful staff members had been mugged off by a manager. She told me to go back to my desk, and she needed to speak to the manager in question. 20 minutes later, the manager came back in looking absolutely defeated. He never, ever said anything to me again about being late. I feel like 95% of the reason why I read malicious compliance stories is for that one delicious moment when when OP looks at that douchebag in the eyes and says their exact words back to them. It just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Our next post is from Ansley Starr. I used to be a bartender and manager at a small family-owned restaurant. We had this one customer who I'll call D. It's short for douchebag. Anyways, he used to be a really nice guy, always fun to talk to, had interesting stories, the works. However, after about 8 months of him being a regular, he asked me out. I very politely and kindly turned him down. And my God, you would have thought I threatened his mom with the way he reacted. So following that point, he turned into a giant douchebag. always snapping at me, both literally and figuratively, complaining about food that he never had an issue with before, etc. A couple months later, we had some changes to our menu and some slight price changes. Notably, his favorite soup, elk chili, was 75 cents more. He stormed in and sat and ordered elk chili. I said, of course, I just want to make sure that you're aware of the change. He snapped at me and said, "How dumb do you think I am? I can read." Okay, my dude, whatever you say. So he gets his soup, his meal, a few beers, and a glass of one of our higher quality bourbons. I bring him the check and he flips out. "This is more than it was before. You never told me that it would be more. This is fraud. I'm not paying this. Fix it." Okay, I can do that. However, on the check, I had also charged him for only happy hour price beers, which was significantly less than our regular prices. Happy hour ended before he even got there. I also charged him for a lower quality bourbon by the same company. Please note, the owner was okay with that since he was technically a regular and had spent a lot of money there. So I fixed his check for him, but I fixed all of it. The new check was about $15 more than it was before. He was so mad he was lost for words, and I took that time to show him how I fixed his check. He never came back on nights I was working after that. I don't work there anymore. I wonder how he's doing. Our next post is from Bright Ninja. Let me first say I have been a lurker here for quite some time and always enjoy your stories, especially when you stick it to stupid bosses. This happened some time ago, but I think it would fit here. These are the actors. Bob, my boss at the time, old, can't keep up with technology, but had been with the company for a long time and so got to be my boss. Hans, the hero of the story, friend from school who works in the same company but in management, but in a different department, helped me get this job 4 years prior. Caroline, a coworker who is not the smartest tool in the shed, but makes up for it in work ethic. Carl, a normal coworker who has worked at the company for 6 years and handles mostly the old client accounts. Has a family, very busy. Me, guy in his late 20s, a little geeky, likes computers. This was a small company, and our team of 3 were best described as tech support for our clients, but it went a bit further than that. I usually help with setting up databases and also advise clients from time to time if they would benefit from upgrading their plan, etc. As normal with tech support, we got tickets from clients and would work away at them one by one. I liked the more challenging problems and usually tried to work hard at them. And it just so happened that Caroline liked the more standard problems and enjoyed doing something she already knew over something new every day. Nothing wrong with that. As you might imagine, we two made a good team and had this kind of unwritten rules who took which tickets. Win, 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 win. Me, Caroline, company, and client. Until we got a new boss, Bob. He immediately noticed that I was working far fewer tickets than Caroline. I tried to explain to him how not every ticket is the same workload, but because he wasn't very tech savvy and didn't understand half the stuff I was doing, he didn't understand. Also, around 1 month later, we got a huge new client, and I spent a week on site and setting up all the databases and stuff they needed. This drew down my month average ticket numbers even further. Duh. Excuse me, back to the story. If Bob would have only had half a brain cell, he could have figured out why. Now came something I did not expect from Bob. He said we need more help on the team, and he was approved to hire a 4th member of our team. I was excited. We all were. We had this new, huge client, and things were not yet running smoothly. And anyway, our company was expanding fast. So this actually made sense. And he specifically asked me to basically do the recruiting process and to work the new guy in. He might have figured out that he did not have a clue what we were doing, I thought, which I was happy to do. That same night, Hans calls me, which is weird because Hans is not a caller. He is a texter. He basically said, "You should come over to my house tomorrow. I have some beers that need drinking." So the next day I get to Hans's house and we are just talking about normal stuff. We see each other maybe once per month and have a big overlapping friend pool. But this time, it was just me and him drinking beers, no other friends around. After some beers, he mentioned that he had just updated his resume the day before and that everyone should always have an updated resume on hand. Do you have an up-to-date resume? He asked. I felt this was a weird question and had an idea where this was going, so I said, no, but should I? Is there something you know about that you want to tell me? He says, well, I am just saying that everyone should have a resume ready, but I, of course, couldn't tell you if Bob thinks about letting you go. But I also couldn't tell you if Bob is not thinking about letting you go. I thanked him very much for the beers and left shortly after that. So I know I am getting fired, and I have the suspicion that Bob has just asked me to hire my own replacement and train him to do my job so he can take it. This is finally where the sweet malicious compliance comes in. I fully comply with hiring a fourth member of the team and also pick one best suited for what Bob wants: high ticket numbers. So I am thinking not so smart person with a sloppy attitude that does not care if the customer is happy. After all, customer satisfaction was not important to Bob when he talked about my ticket numbers. I get right on it. Many people apply, some good ones, but I weed those out very quickly. Resumes with lots of spelling mistakes and little experience in the sector are the ones I invite for an interview. The interview stage is trickier because now Bob and someone from HR are sitting in with me, but I am still asking most of the questions and giving my opinions on the candidates. But because I weeded out the good ones when Bob makes a decision, he just chose the best of the worst. In my opinion, not even the best, because one applicant was actually quite good, but I asked stupid questions that did not even make sense, and when he could not answer them, I made him look really bad. Sorry, John. I advise one candidate he ends up picking because he will work very fast and will get a lot of tickets done. At this point, I have another job lined up in 4 months' time, but I wanted to get fired by Bob to get some sweet severance pay. After 2 months of training Mr. New Guy, I have just shown him how to do basic tickets, which he can do quite well and fast, but makes a lot of mistakes with, and have let the hard ones slowly build up. Carl notices, and as he would be the only one after my firing to be able to handle them, I let him in on what I was doing. As chance would have it, he had just gotten an offer from another company, and since he also did not like Bob, he already decided that he will take the offer, but said he could sit on it a few weeks and time it with my firing for maximum destruction. Then I tell Bob I am done working in the New Guy, and a week later he tells me he sadly needs to let me go because my numbers had not gotten better. He actually used that against me, that I had not been doing that many tickets while I was training the New Guy. How dumb can you even be, Bob? He also wished me a lot of luck finding a new place to work at with my work ethic. This had been the day I was waiting for, and I just thanked Bob and reminded him of the 4 months worth of severance I was owed, and also the 2 months worth of vacation I had not taken and carried over and was now entitled to get paid out. As I am heading out, I tell Carl what had just happened, and he opens his drawer with a signed 2-week notice and walks into Bob's office. My girlfriend had vacation time left, and we decided to leave for a 4-week holiday to New Zealand the next week. I proposed to her there. As the saying goes, spend 1/4 of your severance on the engagement ring. I started my new job 1 month after returning from New Zealand and even got a nice pay bump and a good boss. I made sure to thank Hans again, and he kept me in the loop on how my old department went down the drain very quickly. And Bob was let go sometime later. When that happened, they actually approached me for taking his job, and I declined. But that would have been the ultimate F you to him. About 5 years later, last year, I started a company together with Hans doing much of the same thing, but in a different city, and so far it is going really well. Our next post is from AshyCat21. Hey Reddit, this is my first post, and it's my boyfriend's story. So a bit of backstory. My boyfriend's boss is a bit of a dick, but unfortunately, he's also his uncle. My boyfriend works in IT. He handles a lot of complaints regarding servers and general IT stuff. For the past 3 years, he has worked overtime for free. It's difficult to say no to family. He answers his personal phone and has to drive long distances to fix problems clients are having, sometimes at 10 at night. Recently, we've been trying to save money to make a life together. So my boyfriend decided to ask the boss to finally get paid for all the overtime hours he will be working from now on. The boss is livid. He states that he will not pay my boyfriend overtime money and shouldn't ask again, and that he should be grateful for his job. He concludes by saying that there is no such thing as overtime in this business. Can you see where the malicious compliance comes in yet? So my boyfriend now does not answer calls after 5 or before 8. The boss now has to take all those calls and drive the ridiculous distances himself. Boyfriend gets called in and is asked why he isn't picking up his phone because the clients are getting really upset at him. Boyfriend's answer, "I'm sorry, but you said there is no such thing as overtime." I've never been more proud. Man, why does it feel like every single manager has to go through a mandatory how to be a hypocritical douchebag course before taking the job? That was r/malicious compliance. And if you have a terrible boss story, let me hear it down in the comments.